Доброе утро, дорогие коллеги, доброе утро, дорогие друзья.
Good morning, dear friends.
Сегодняшняя сессия у нас
Our today's
называется
session is
«Цифровой
called
рубль и
Digital Ruble and
Tokenization».
Tokenization.
И это та сессия,
And
где
this is the
мы с
session
вами
where we
поговорим уже о первых
will
результатах,
speak about our first
которые мы имеем
results
по этим
that
двум
we've got on those
огромным
two
проектам.
huge
Если
projects.
токенизация у нас там
In
несколько
terms of
проектов,
tokenizations, we have a bunch of projects, but
это
digital ruble
действительно
is
проект, который мы с вами
really
обсуждали
one
в прошлый
project
раз
that
на
we've
Финополисе, он
discussed
был
last
как
time
проект,
during the
а в этом
Finapolis
году мы уже начали пилот.
forum, and this year we already
Сейчас
launched
я
a
представлю
pilot.
своих
And now I'm
дорогих
going to
коллег,
introduce to you our
которые со мной будут
distinguished
участвовать в этой
colleagues
дискуссии.
that will be part of this discussion today. Sergey Khotimskiy, first deputy board chair of Sovcombank.
Vadim Kulik,
Vadim Kulik,
председатель и член
deputy
правления
chairman
банка
and board member of VTB Bank.
Dmitry Zauers,
Dmitry
заместитель
Zauers,
председателя правления
deputy board chairman of Gazprombank.
Yury Denisov,
Yury
председатель
Denisov,
правления Мосбиржа.
president of the board of Mosbirja, Moscow Exchange,
Sergey Batekhin,
and Sergey
генеральный директор,
Batekhin, director
председатель правления
general
группы
and
Interros.
chairman of the board of directors of Interros Group.
У нас действительно такая вот,
We have
как
today
сказать,
really
разнонаправленное представление участников,
versatile
потому
introduction of
что
our participants
цифровой
today,
рубль
because the digital
задумывался и
ruble
делается
was
как третья форма
designed and was
национальной
made
валюты,
as a
и,
third form
безусловно,
of
она
our national
затрагивает не только
currency, and for
банки. Я
sure
даже
it
сказала, не
is
столько
relevant
банки,
not only to
а затрагивает и другие
banks, it is
сферы,
relevant for
и
all
в первую
other
очередь влияет
spheres
на
and
нас с вами,
industries.
как на
It
граждан.
impacts us as
Напомню, что мы
citizens, first and
концепцию
foremost.
опубликовали в
I'd
2021
like to
году.
remind you that the concept was published in 2020. We selected a retail model. There were a lot of discussions around this topic. But nevertheless, as of today, we're absolutely sure that we made the right choice. And starting from August 15 this year, we launched transactions with real digital rubles.
У нас в пилоте сейчас
We
13
have in the
банков, 3
pilot
банка
now 13
присутствуют
pilots.
здесь.
3 banks are
Они как раз
presented here today. They are
лидерами этого
the
пилота, очень
leaders
много
of
что
this
сделали на
pilot,
своей
and they
стороне,
did a lot,
и сегодня поделятся с нами
and
своими
they made a
впечатлениями.
great contribution to this
Напомню,
project. They
что
will
мы
share their
запустили с 15
experience today.
августа
Since
базовые операции.
since the 15th August, we launched the basic transactions, opening wallets in digital rubles, transactions from an individual to individual.
Это переводы в оплату.
And these are
Товаров и услуг. У
also
нас есть там
payments
определенное
for
количество
goods and
торгово-сервисных
services.
точек из
We
11
have a number
городов.
of points of
Должна сказать, что
sales
по
from
состоянию на
11
сегодня у нас уже
cities.
прошло
And as
более
of
10
today,
тысяч
we
операций с цифровыми
already had more
рублями.
than 10,000 transactions with
При
digital
этом
rubles.
мы планируем
At the same time,
буквально в следующем
we
году
plan next
развивать
year
и в
to
дальнейшем
develop
сервисы.
our
Как раз
services
коллеги тоже
further
сегодня
on,
должны
and colleagues
подсказать,
will give us
какие
a clue
приоритеты они
what
видят в развитии этих
priorities they
сервисов.
see in those
И
services.
мы также
And
прорабатываем
we are
тему
also working now on the topic of
которые
transborder
мы
settlements,
могли бы сделать
which we
с
could
другими
make
странами,
with other countries
которые также запускают
that
свои национальные
are also
цифровые
about to
валюты.
launch their digital
И
currencies.
я начну как раз с
I will
вопроса
start with a question
к уважаемым
to
нашим
our
трем банкам,
distinguished three
Сергею,
banks,
Вадиму и
to Sergey,
Дмитрию.
Vadim, and Dmitry.
Поскольку вы
Since you
в первой волне пилота по
are
цифровому
in the
рублю,
first
и, в
wave of
принципе, на
the
вашу
digital
долю,
ruble
поскольку вы
pilot,
первые,
and since you're first,
пришелся
got
большой комплекс
a
вопросов
big
разных,
number of different
технологических,
issues, technology issues, organization, legal, client
Вы с этим
relations.
справились. Я должна
You
сказать,
made
что
it. I
действительно
should say that
вы
you did a
достаточно
great job
быстро
of
отрабатывали все
working
темы.
quickly on all the
Для
topics
нас
that
самое
you've
главное
had.
понять,
But the most
как вы
important
видите
for us
реакцию
is to understand
клиента,
what's
что
the
клиентам
reaction
удобно,
of the
что неудобно,
customer,
и как
what is
вообще
convenient and what is not
клиенты
convenient for the
оценивают
client,
эту
and how
новую сущность,
clients
цифровой рубль.
perceive this
Сергей,
new
начнем,
essence
наверное,
of a
с вас.
digital ruble. Sergey, let's start with you, please. Well, as a matter of fact, we could go down to some technical things regarding interfaces, what they do like or dislike, where they see some additional opportunities. But the most important thing today is to have the general message of this thing. People want to expand this system as fast as possible. This is a limited pilot now, and on one hand, we feel some premiers or elite group which have been entrusted with those things to be tested. But on the other hand, the appetite comes during the meal, and as soon as you start using it, you want to get as much as possible practical opportunities to see as much as possible your friends and colleagues in the system to be able to use it together. The most important feedback, everything is clear about anything. It's not a super new story for anybody. It's as much similar as those ways of managing funds people got used to. And the main feedback here is probably that people just are eager to get the expansion of this thing and have a full-fledged system in their hands. It is true, you stressed that. That was one of our tasks, given that we, the platform operator, and the digital ruble platform was established by the central bank. For us, it was very important to keep the client journey through our interfaces and mobile apps. To what extent we managed it or not, Vadim, what challenges you see for us and for you? Thanks, Olga, for your question. I would continue the thought of Sergey about that we had a lot of concerns when we launched the digital ruble. There were different questions, issues coming from the community, that someone was scary, they were afraid of something. But the most important result of this pilot, in my opinion, is the following. The biggest amount of applications we got is with the question, why didn't you include us? We want to be a part of it, but why don't you let us be in? Those who are part of those pilot projects, they mark the convenience, the friendliness. Yes, there are some things for legal entities and there's some things to be improved in terms of settlements, but these are very minor things, I would say. And we rather see here the growing wave of requests. How can we be the part of this pilot, and when can we use it in a full-fledged mode? I would propose to think here how to make it faster, how to make the rollout of those pilots faster. Do not put it on break and somehow reduce the timeline. That would be my feedback. I agree with you. Many participants of the central bank are part of this pilot. The first group was limited in number, not only for banks, but only for us, both for legal entities and individuals. And we also face the problem that our employees please include us, but we have, unfortunately, the upper limit, the limitation for that. I should tell you that we are planning to expand the list of participants or list of legal entities anyway. It will be significantly expanded in the pilot in your banks, and also for the central bank entities. It will come already in the first quarter of next year. On top of that, we have the second wave. 15 banks applied for the second wave of the pilot already, and we built already the third group. So I absolutely agree with colleagues that now the question is about quick rolling out of the set and the number of transactions and types of transactions there. Because what we were concerned about, I don't make a secret of it, always such big infrastructural projects at the level of the country, in the first place they require some technical fine-tuning, because something doesn't work in the first stage, it's of no use to continue. We spend a lot of time on sorting out all technical issues. We understood very well that from the technological point of view, we have a working system, a complex system. Our platform, our operating system of the bank should be completely online, and so on. But since we have sorted out all issues at the pilot stage, now the issue of transactions, how to connect users, this is relevant now. Dmitry, do you want to add something here? Yes, Olga, thank you very much. It is true. I would first say thank you to all the colleagues who were responsible for the technological side of this project. We never saw any problems with integration. The most part of discussions were about the client journey, about the interfaces, and I wanted to point it out, especially one of the most important tasks is to make it absolutely similar to all other forms of money for people. Of course, I mean cashless settlements first and foremost. and we made it. It was a success. Now the pilot team is much easier and convenient to use a digital ruble than find some SBP settings in a number of other banks which are not present here now. It's a big achievement of ours. People finally can use those services in a normal way. Now, if we speak about scaling out, it is very important to add services, banking services, and mostly it is about transactions. NFC, everyone wants NFC. This is one of the topics which is on our plans, which is on our agenda. I know that all colleagues know that. Speaking about services related to B2B or C2B, this is dynamic QR, which would significantly improve the client experience. We will speak about smart contracts today too. It's clear that we need to use the benefits of the digital ruble here. Nevertheless, this start, which started in August and it lasts less than 3 months, generally speaking, it shows that the project is a success. It shows that people react very well, and they started to understand that this is not digital slavery at all. This is a normal way of operation and working. Probably I have to add, this is a rare project which at the pilot stage have a reaction which is very positive. We want more, give us more. This is the reaction on this project. The digital ruble is among these projects. Dmitry touched upon a very correct topic. I'd like to remind you why we all do digital ruble together, and I'm really grateful to those banks who joined us in this endeavor. We understood that cashless cannot solve the issue of the payment slavery for the person, for the individual. With huge pace, we see the growth of cashless settlements, transactions, and everything. This is more than 82% already. And to create for everybody an opportunity to have an alternative to cashless settlements, which would directly depend on tariffs and bank restrictions, it is very important. And for me, it's a big pleasure that our distinguished colleagues share this point of view and consider digital ruble not as a loss of their small liquidity, because we do not expect any serious, significant changes. Of course, part of the liquidity will go from cash and cashless because it's convenient for people when it's free of charge and user-friendly. And colleagues consider the digital ruble as an opportunity to launch a new stage of competition and fight for the client to some extent, which is really important now, especially in the payment sphere where the competition does not look well. Probably just a few words I would like to ask Sergey and Vadim, do they still think that this is a window of opportunity for the competition development? And my second question goes to all our colleagues today. Last year we discussed how shall we build up our work with smart contracts. I have to remind you that in the concept of the digital ruble, we embedded the concept that some smart contracts will be built on our platform, but at the same time, we as a regulator believe that banks should also have an opportunity to build, to provide smart contracts to their customers and to pass over some basic conditions to us to make basic transactions on our platform. This idea is under discussion right now with colleagues, and I'd like to have their take on that. But the first question goes to you about the competition, please. Well, you know, the question of competition, and when we answer these questions, we should touch smart contracts one way or another. Because since we understand that it is about transaction products, and generally speaking, it's not a very big field for creativity. And this field starts to play the role how to simplify the way of managing money. And let's take the corporate client as an example, which has a number of legal entities. And right away we arrive at the story of targeted use of funds. And this should be regulated by a smart contract. So, for sure, we do see still competition there, and we moreover work inside our organization on some tools to be started within this project. And probably the biggest space for creativity will be around legal entities here. I see it rather in this way. We wish we could have on the platform some standard contracts, simple off-the-shelf contracts, so we could model more complex things using those building blocks. I saw discussions with the central bank on the topic how it should be built in a proper way, what should be the volume of those smart contracts be available in the platform, and we even have some preliminary understanding what should be there and what else we would like to leave in our own hands. Yes, I agree, I confirm this is a competitive story. We are about to compete. Yes, you can start proposing, and I urge you to be more active in this regard, your bank and other banks, because those 13 banks which we have in our pilot for sure can produce their proposal of smart contracts on their side. We should just set the rules of the game internally, what should be on the platform of the central bank and what market participants will have on their platforms. Yes, Sergey, please. There's a lot of aspects of this competition, a lot of opportunities we really see there. It is obvious that the implementation of the technology, how this triangle of cash, cashless and digital ruble will be organized, and what client experience the customers will get, and this would create new competitive advantages or disadvantages probably. There are basic things related to things that we've already pointed out. This cashless slavery, which unfortunately has become a deterrent or a problem over the last 2 years, and it even reached the situation that it was escalated to the regulator, and so the digital ruble is another important tool to avoid this. A few words about smart contracts. On one hand, this is an opportunity to compete by creative things. On the other hand, we have to be very cautious there. Once again, through a monopolistic statutes, some contracts can be created in some spheres, which, well, if the digital ruble is absolutely open platforms, those private contracts could build up some client verticals which would drive people back to some only one big player. And in this regard, the regulator should have the power to give this freedom on one hand to make the thing work, because each smart contract is a small startup which have its destiny or popularity. On the other hand, if it turned out to be a monopoly of the client experience, the regulator should have also the power to make this contract centralized and to avoid that it comes to the vicious circle within big banks or ecosystems. Thank you, but we have a rare case that market players offer some additional powers to the regulator. It's a very rare situation, but a very fine topic and very correct topic you touched upon, the topic of technology influence on competition and monopolies, because technologies have two sides of the coin. If a monopolist, the leader, has a resource, of course technologies can be used in his or her own interests, and he can limit development opportunities for others. And the client journey, client service can be done only in his ecosystems. We have a lot of experience of that kind in the world. I don't know whether you know or not, but in the recent 3 years, there are a lot of suits for Amazon and Google, and the problem sits there. When due to the company growth, the company starts to use technologies exclusively in their own interests without giving opportunity to develop the market and other marketplaces. players.
We don't have the answer to this question yet. I'll be honest, it's very complex, and we'll have to search for this answer very fast, because we also face the same risks. And Dmitry has mentioned that everybody is waiting for the dynamic QR code when it comes to the digital ruble. I'd like to remind you that currently we are working on the static QR code in a pilot mode. So this is the QR code that doesn't move, but well, all the clients would like to have the NFC one-touch function, etc. Yesterday, at the panel discussion, we discussed with other colleagues the topic of the unified QR code for payments. Why? Because this year we are talking about human centricity. Everything is moving there, and there are now so many QR codes that a human being just lost. And the question is what benefit we can get from which QR code. So, colleagues, probably this is the question not exactly in accordance with the topic of today's discussion, but I'd like still to pose this question. What do you think about the necessity for the regulator jointly with the marketplace to think of very fast and implement the unified QR code so that later on the customer would be able to choose the account from which the funds will be withdrawn. I guess that that's the right approach when it comes to competition, because what is happening now at the cashier boxes, well, this is very chaotic. Now we have like 2 or 3 options, but very soon we might have 10 options. And in the end, it will be about the motivation of the cashiers, actually, who will be explaining. And here, we understand that it will be done quite remotely from the banks, from the monopolists in the acquiring and the issuance of cards. And I guess that unified QR code is the right approach here. Vladimir, what about you? I guess that this is the only way for the development further, because in the future, everybody, well, should maintain and support the 1C systems for production, for sales, etc. And so, just in general, if we don't have the unified QR code, it will be very chaotic in this country. So I guess that we should address this task as fast as possible. Well, I guess that a dynamic and centralized unified QR code are coupled here and should be coupled here. And when it comes to the digital ruble and the dynamic QR code, obviously it will open the window of opportunities of transferring to the unified QR code. Well, competition can lead to the increase, to the development of the client experience, but sometimes it can work vice versa. Now, we don't see any additional advantages that the current situation might bring us, but the disadvantages are very clear. Right, indeed. So the digital ruble just added some thoughts, because the topic of the unified QR, not only for the digital ruble, but also for cashless payments, it's a very important topic, and we need to think about how to do this, how to make it happen. Otherwise, when we go to a store, we'll face the situation when we have 15 QR codes, and then we'll have to figure out which QR code to use. So from a personal point of view, this is not about convenience and user-friendliness. Cashless operation wouldn't be convenient, even the use. So from a personal point of view, this is not about convenience and user-friendliness. Cashless operation wouldn't be convenient, even though it is quite easy. Now, colleagues, let's talk about a more general topic, tokenization. Why did we decide to discuss it? Because the CBDC and national digital currencies actually appeared on the wave of the discussion of the distributed registries and smart contracts. All the regulators that actually work with the CBDCs now, they're in active phase of their pilot, and they don't really fool the platform for the distributed registries or ledgers fully. And so if we talk about the data protection, about when we talking about the mass payments, which is about digital ruble and CBDC. So all the regulators follow some hybrid approach, when there is a regulator who actually processes the mass operations, and there is also a smart contract that allows to introduce some conditions. And so the topic of blockchain and smart contracts, it is in the field of the smart assets, financial assets, and tokenized deposits. Maybe later on we'll get some additional products on the financial market. Now I'm thinking about tokenized deposits and the ones that I mentioned before. So we've also gone a long way over the last 18 months, and so last time we discussed different approaches to regulation. Obviously it's difficult to actually approach everything rightfully from the very beginning, because we are being cautious here and we are moving forward step by step, and the same happens with the marketplace. Today we see the active development of digital financial assets. Now we've got 10 operators of information systems. We have one operator of information exchange. This is the Moscow exchange or Mosbirja. And today the question is, when we already have the fundamental regulation, the basic one, when we understand how it started to work, how can we optimize the process? How can we build the work of between the operator of exchange and the operator of the information system? Where can we get this new level of quality for business, for customers? And what shall we do, not only from the regulation point of view, but also from the technological novelties point of view, when the regulator can also play in this? And so now I have a question to the representatives of Moscow Exchange, to Yury. So today we've heard a lot of discussions about the role of Moscow Exchange. Could you please elaborate on your experience? Where are the new tasks and opportunities for us when it comes to the digital financial assets in the market? What will a human being get new when it comes to the financial digital assets? Because the market is already quite known by everybody, and when I ask, like my relatives, my friends, what can you get from the digital financial assets, they answer that they don't really know. So could you please explain that to us? Yes, thank you very much for the question, Olga. First, I would like to thank everybody, the regulator, the participants, the representative of the Gazprombank with whom we've gone along this way. So we got this status of the operator of the exchange. We discussed it, and we also implemented software to have this certification now. And I would like to thank everybody. I hope that the current digital assets, financial assets market, is still not that big on the one hand, but on the other hand, we see the classical market, which is about 1 trillion of rubles. It's a large one, the procedures are long, but we also take you from some other markets, and we see the development of tokenization in the other markets. There is some saving aspect, because tokenization is faster, it's less expensive. And of course, it's difficult sometimes to explain to people that are not into this topic, like what's good about tokenization. But I believe that with the development of the market, we will see more advantages. Well, we'll also ask Sergey about the advantages for the customer. He will answer it later. Right, so what is our main task? Our main task is to make the market more unified. And we see it from two aspects. First, the creation of the technological basis. The operator of the exchange is the player who can unite everybody to create the simpler and faster transactions. So how can we do this? We would also like to ask about some changes in the regulation when it comes to the delegation. So the operators of the information systems, it would be nice if they could identify their customers through the exchange operators. So once the customer got identified, then, like all the other systems, will get this identification. It will be faster and it will be very convenient for a customer. What's also important is how actually the participants will come to this system. Because, well, 29.1 million of physical entities that have accounts are working in the market that we discuss now. And 3.6 million of these people actually have transactions on a monthly basis. That means that actually there's a huge market and the issuer can make this transaction faster. And everybody just wants one thing, just to have a good database and base where one could go and be placed. So here we should use the technology as well. And if we have the unified confirmation of the digital financial assets of the transaction, it would be very nice, because that's how we would be able to unify the technological procedures. So the most important task here is just to lead the clients to this unified operator system. And so there are different opportunities when it comes to the digital financial assets platforms. We have such a project which is called Financial Services, and we can use this. However, it is not that developed yet, and it will be interesting for us actually to use the liquidity of those players that are presented at the classical market. That's why we stand ready to introduce some technical solutions and to change some procedures of ours. It's very important to enable the broker to be the intermediary that will help the participant of the market, the individual, just to come to this digital financial assets market. And another aspect is the taxation. It's very important to make all the instruments the same in terms of the taxes, to avoid any preferences. It's very important to have the unified taxation approach for digital financial assets. Right, okay, so that there would be no preferences, right, just to provide some equal opportunities. Right, and so what's new and what's good is in there for customers? You, as a leader of the digital financial assets, well, Sergey, you actually were one of the leaders as a company, because you started to develop products. And if there is no consumer, if there is no demand and interest, we can do multiple exercises in the technologies, but it won't be needed. So what do you think is needed to actually get individuals interested in the tokenization and digital financial assets? And do you support the suggestions of Yury to expand the functionality of the Moscow exchange, maybe give them some more tasks to enable the Moscow exchange to be more active at the digital financial assets market? Thank you. So I would like to give you two examples from our life. There are two conditions or criteria, two smart words, blockchain and smart contracts. So in our practice, Norilsky Nickel issued a couple of tokens for its products. Nothing new, right? But the batches that were tokenized, they also got the green certificate. So that specific batch was specified in the smart contract. And the buyer didn't only buy the metal, the product itself, but also the certification that this product was manufactured based on the green technologies. And it applied to the whole value chain, starting from the manufacturing and ending with the use of some particular raw material. So with the tokenization, we can actually track the movement of some particular batch. In this case, it's metal one. We can track this up until the end customer. We can track the specific volume of metal that was consumed by a customer for example, the production of a vehicle. And we also get the confirmation that it was done in accordance with some specific standards. And the smart contract is the only tool that technologically allows us actually to fill in the requirements in the digital form, the requirements that are visible to all the participants in the process. In the second case that we've had, we've issued a token for the works of art jointly with the Hermitage. We announced it at the Far Eastern Economic Forum. The question is that the artwork exists before some restoration works, and it exists after that as well. And so the technology of smart contract and the technology of digital image allows us to preserve the image of the piece of art before some restoration works and after this. That means that we get a unique digital image that no other technology allows us to have. What else does blockchain allow us to have? Widely speaking, we can have transactions without any intermediaries. This technology allows us to do without the clearing center, without any deposits, because the technology itself establishes trust. So the transaction between a seller and a buyer happens in an automatic node. With a special key, you confirm the transaction, and it is done regardless of the will of the participants in the automatic mode. So the advantages of the technology allow this technology to develop not only here in this country, but also around the world. As to our standings now, well, thanks to the regulator, and the State Duma adopted a law about 18 months ago, and so the market was launched. Now we've got a lot of players already operating in the market, and we believe that digital financial assets or tokens already have the right to live. What shall we do to develop it further? I do agree with Yury that today actually we have kind of chaotic market here. And so within the small ecosystem, we just have different elements. And so I do support the movement together with the central bank. And I guess that we should unify our automated information systems. So we can have the information systems that can interact between each other and exchange tokens. So this is the discussion that is already needed. But the question is what is to implement. We need to increase the liquidity of this market. We need to allow operators and players to talk in the language of technology. This is definitely achievable, but we just need to sit, to talk, and to agree on the regulation part of this question. Later, we also believe that we should go beyond the borders of Russia, because the same players actually act around the world. And we believe the strategy should be as follows. The Russian platforms should interact with other players abroad. This will allow us to use different instruments here in these countries. Now we have some lack of this, you know why. And well, we could use with the exchange operators, the information system operators, and we could also offer the Russian investors some additional tools. And the third suggestion is the same, but we are just queuing in the line towards Olga. So we are waiting when the operators of the information systems will be allowed actually to also work with digital ruble, when banks play with this new concept, when they get accustomed to this. Well, you know, we have a lot of banks that are still actually to play with this. Right, I do agree that we should have a parallel process, because we would also like to involve not only banks but some intermediaries as well. But the question is, what are the criteria that we should be guided by when we assess the financial intermediaries? Because, well, you know, the financial intermediaries should have some solid position, and they should also respect the requirements. And we should be sure that we'll be respecting those requirements. We have money for this. We are ready to invest and test. Right. You've also tested last year together with the banks. Yes, so we've completed that stage. It was successful. The next step for us is the direct integration.
Tomorrow there will be a big session devoted to CFA only, just not to eat the bread of our colleagues of tomorrow. I was asking questions about CFA in the relation to tokenization. I will continue it. Just recently, the International Settlement Bank issued one of the reports. They call it a concept. That the idea of those paper was the following: that it would be good, apart from the national digital currencies, digital assets, to make one big joint platform which would host settlements and transactions, and CFA, CDBC, and tokenized deposits where they are will be circulated on this platform. And according to this concept, the idea is given there: why cannot it be done with the regulator, under a regulator? No country is mentioned there, it's just discussed as a general idea there. But nevertheless, this idea appeared at the colleagues from the International Settlement Bank. Deliberately, they devoted a big paper to it. Please read it if you didn't. And the community was stirred by this idea, because now we are moving away from SWIFT one way or another, because CBDC for sure will give an opportunity to have a different form of transported settlements. And now the new idea popped up of a joint platform or a joint ledger where all transactions will be recorded, and there will be only one operator for all transactions: CFA, CBDC, tokenized deposits. And now I'd like to ask my colleagues to speak on that. We have our own opinion as a regulator, but I'd like to listen to the market player first. We should understand, shall we think on this topic, we as a country, or shall we perceive it as one of the ideas that appear in bunches in the world, and we shouldn't have any advantage of it? Sergey. What's your take on that? Unfortunately, I didn't read the report, but I understood the idea to centralize everything and to drive everything to one platform. It's not an idea which is close to me. I think we have a number of players: banks, exchanges, information system operators, change operators, regulators, and digital ruble, digital platform. And all players understand what they do and where they go. I think centralization here is not good. We should diversify instead, and we should develop the market rules of the game. And the second geopolitical part, any centralization is now under risks of sanctions. Sorry. Yury, well, I absolutely agree with Sergey. I believe that in this case we have all the roles we have to run and do. our job, and we shouldn't rethink it again. It's real change now happens, and a lot of people are involved in building up this market, and I don't think it's necessary to centralize it further. Sergey, Vadim, Dmitry, please, in this order. It's amazing when we look at the centralization which happens outside of us, we are against it, of course, because it's an additional element of control over us. But when we start discussing the situation at home, let's build a joint platform that all an automated information system will communicate. It will be a different story. But for me, tokenization is initially securitization 2.0. We messed the first tokenization, turning the non-standard assets to liquid assets. We messed the whole story, failed it. But it didn't fly, it didn't work out. Apart from Dom RF, we have nothing to boast. So tokenization could close big gaps and could generate a big bunch of new assets. But as soon as we go away of any centralization, I do not feel even seriously about the international one. It's just an absurd idea right now. Why people don't like securitization? Because we strive to the fact, let's confirm that this guy controls the other ones, 8 regulators, and then we do not allow to buy it because the pension fund could buy something securitized, nothing, have changed it, and it's not clear. If tokenization goes any ways of the mentioned, it will have a lot of costs, because any additional participant means costs. And no one would change my mind, make me change my mind, that any link in this assets chain will not bring any additional costs, which would kill such good ideas as securitization. When we speak about tokenization of bonds or deposits or shares, why should we do this? These are normal standard things, they work perfectly without it. Today, generally speaking, they don't have any high costs, everything happens there and it works. Speaking about complex tools like metals or shares from some type of revenue which company gets, or some mortgage credits. So using smart contracts, there could be a revolution if a regulator does its big job together with the market. So if we go the way of checking and verifying as much as regulators as possible, and then regulate it all in the end, we will get a story that now it's a hype. Let's turn our short-term debt to a token. Well, of course, we can find a niche there if intermediaries in this market charge high tariffs, but it wouldn't be revolutionary. The main focus should be made, I think, on smart contract promotion and tokenization promotion, and this focus should be made as maximum centralization as possible. Then the blockchain allows to decentralize it. When we speak about central currency, this is national currency. These are huge volumes. Here it's difficult to speak about that. But got to be aware that we make the same mistake and build over-centralized system in part of the tokenization development. Yes, Vadim. I've been behaving for 40 minutes already here. It's a high time to break this tradition. Well, of course, I understand the colleagues or the guys who made this report. They saw a gap, and how come those CBDCs in 3 to 5 years, as one of my colleagues mentioned last week, would build a new settlement system which would turn out to be absolutely decentralized. Nobody would belong to anything. Nobody would have a key of the system. Of course, they become scared, and well, they started to speak about one platform, a single platform, and please pay attention. They are about to record everything there, starting from digital currencies into anything else. And now you invented your digital currencies, and previously you didn't bring us your rubles to register with us, but now you would do it not only with the currencies, but also with your digital currencies. You would come to us and register. A wonderful idea, of course. I just wonder why we need this. Given all SWIFT, Euroclear, and let's name it, why we need that all from all over the world? Because our previous experience of centralized infrastructure was resulted in a situation of a deadlock, which we all are in. Everybody starts to rebuild the settlement formats, to join different platforms, different digital platforms, and to move away as much as possible from a centralized infrastructure in the world. This is the trend. Moreover, everybody should all of a sudden refuse from this trend, but from part they also violate the powers of central banks of different countries in one way of the currency, in the digital currency. But anyway, this is true. So softly speaking, we cannot even explain it to ourselves why we really need that. There was another topic. So if we do not think that this is a good idea for us and we shouldn't be part of this platform, I'm not speaking about geopolitics now. Probably we should create something at home, our own domestic system. Some players propose to build a single platform which will have everything. My answer to that proposal was no, honestly speaking, but such idea appeared in the country. I do like new platforms, especially I like platforms which are over platforms and over those platforms too. This is the best story which could happen. But the question again, why? What tasks would it solve? Because when something sits over the platform, something appears or somebody appears over the platform, well, just have a thought that they've only the goal to allow or not allow you to be there. They would use this platform as a tool of influence. Restrictive or not restrictive doesn't matter. It for sure wouldn't give anything to the client, it wouldn't give anything to the process, it would not make it cheaper, because in order to operate and to create this platform, you need to integrate everybody, and the end client will have a higher price for that. And the process is absolutely unpredictable. And then we will even spend money how to find ways to circumvent it. Well, obviously I don't see any reason in that. I keep asking this question, why? And many companies come to us, not even banks, but companies who tell me all the time that they invented a fantastic platform. And as soon as I ask what's the benefit, they couldn't tell me. But the platform is wonderful. Yes, that's true. No, there's no reason if it doesn't solve any tasks. No reason at all. So I heard your answer that you don't see any reason in that. But again, the same question to you, Dmitry. Probably you would have a different opinion. Well, no. The main humor and the main trick here is that the idea to establish a centralized platform for technologies which have the most benefit of decentralization is, softly speaking, too original. Well, you should have invented that. But I would have another analogy. Let's take cryptocurrency. The technology is solid, but due to the fact that it's absolutely decentralized, millions and thousands of exchanges can be set up, and a bunch of players can play on those exchanges due to those benefits of this technology. And the whole discussion in the country is not about centralization, what Yury mentioned and Sergey supported. Everybody was speaking about creating as many participants as possible of this platform using the decentralization. It would look strange if we hear the word platform. The other thing is that probably we need some standards to build up our interaction on. Probably it would be better for the colleagues to write a concept for standards of international settlements and not a single platform. May I, Nikolai, if we speak about things inside platforms, there was a dispute. Sergey raised this question that inside the platform there should be some rules, how those smart contracts should be created. Of course, a platform platform should be a list of rules, and those rules must be there. But when colleagues come and say, you know, we have a wonderful invention, a turnpike, and we are going to charge people passing this turnpike. Well, that's the question. The answer is wonderful, very simple monetization format. You just open and close the gate, and that's it. But no other benefits other than getting money of it. Probably after this answer, we should say the colleagues that they are not right. Another idea why this bank they propose this strange idea, softly speaking. Other than controlling everybody and everything, I don't see any other reason behind that. The level of development of services in the European Union is far away from being perfect and far away from us. So when you go from a lower point, probably you can have ambitious plans, but not true that they would come true. If we have national infrastructure, versatile infrastructure, then nobody wants to combine it. Players of the market create different solutions. The exchange plays its part and technologically ready to offer to the operators new options. So in this situation, I see the role of a regulator and players more contributing to it by managing risks and mitigating risk, other than trying to create something general and uniform for everybody, which wouldn't work, as the life shows. There couldn't be one platform that could solve all problems for the whole country. And the most scary thing is the only point of failure. You just find the button to shut it off, and all transactions will all of a sudden be shut off. If we look at this paper, again, how they published it before on other topics, those reports didn't end with anything. It was really interesting to discuss it with you, nevertheless, dear colleagues, because it has been circulated quite actively. Let's come back to our life and what else we can do in terms of international settlements. I will be really honest with you and by saying that despite big efforts that we all had last year, we couldn't solve the issue of international settlements, and it's clear why. The situation would hardly be improving in the recent year, but we need to continue working on this and handling these issues. On one hand, digital ruble is our support, and some colleagues of ours will be ready to work with us. Yesterday we discussed it with the representative of banks from the United Arab Emirates. This is a platform where we can work without intermediaries, we can do integration and know how to do it, but we also welcome private commercial solutions from players, how they plan to do it with their clients. I would rather ask Vadim and Sergey. Probably they have some not only thoughts but also trials and probably ready-made solutions that they consider for themselves as a way of doing international settlements. Yes, Olga, thanks for your question. This is really a complicated topic, and without touching those contacts between use of digital currencies and platforms, well, nevertheless, there is an area where it is possible to invent platforms which would use digital financial assets to make sure that those platforms would host settlements and transactions. And this is important. Probably that could be a side talk about tokenization of deposits. For sure, nowhere in the world they have it, although there is a discussion on that it should be a super trend, but unfortunately, other than that, we couldn't find this super trend in practice. And that's why we tried to tie somehow CFA to fiat money. And no matter how we tried it, we made a lot of experiments, but it didn't work out anywhere. But nevertheless, such platforms are available in the form of an experiment, they will have some country tie, country dependence. There will be a principle, one country, one platform, but nevertheless, later they can be connected. Since they are similar, they can be joined, they can be connected with the integration bridges, and as a result, we will have a new entity, multi-country settlement system, which will use such distributed systems. Well, what is our proposal? What's our idea? Of course, entering and exiting will be in fiat money, but nevertheless, inside CFA will be used, which will not be tied to any fiat money. It will be pegged to indices only. Such settlement ways, on my opinion, is a possible story because they do not violate any legislation, currency legislation in different countries, and generally they are quite neutral and compliant with the country regulations where we plan to develop them. This is an interesting experiment. We are coming closer to piloting probably this year, early next year. And there will be some prototypes which we will develop. Do I understand correctly that in case of success, the principle of one platform, one country at some stage can work if we have several countries? Yes, absolutely. The main idea is that this platform is practically similar and solid inside. It uses same principles, uniform principles, but have some localization from the local legislation point of view.
And from the IT integration point of view, that's quite simple. We can build this bridge, and so that's how we can connect it in a network. Thank you. Sergey, I do know that you also have ideas on it, right? Yes, the same ideas, naturally. Well, the international settlements market is about 280 trillion of USD. And so, in fact, today, about 10% of international settlements are done in the digital currencies, CBDC, etc. So I guess that this market share will continue to grow. Today, we see the three layers of international settlements. The first one is what Olga mentioned, what we have in the United Arab Emirates, and our central banks plan to interact in this respect. Also, the United Arab Emirates have the say with China, Thailand, Hong Kong. They have the project bridge. So they have central banks who have digital currencies, and they build a bridge, and then they settle everything in the digital currencies of the central banks when it comes to import and export operations. So those are pilots and experiments, but this is where the world is moving to. Well, let's be honest. Everybody here knows that Russian business uses cryptocurrency, or USDT, USDC, as we call them, for their external trade operations. Those are small ones, tens or dozens million of USD, maybe 100 for the whole country. But the fact is there. These operations are already happening. We do know the example when MasterCard and Visa now use the technology of blockchain. They don't follow the currency model, they use fiat. They also add entries to the ledger, and so they use blockchain model for the cross-border settlements between countries. So this is where the world is going. Can we, as players, with the potential that we've got over those 18 months that we discussed today, can we start participating in this process? I'm sure that we can. For this, Russian platforms should start talking to the international platforms. From the technological point of view, I agree with Vadim that it is indeed very much possible. We are already doing it partially. And so if the central bank allows us to add digital ruble to this story, then it will be another step in the development of international settlements. What's important here is the regulators' permission and also transparency. Right, so the players and the central bank, the regulator, or central banks of the countries that will be involved in those projects, they should feel comfortable when it comes to the rules of the game. From the technological point of view, we are ready. Right, so the good news are that we as the central bank and also we see the marketplace, we all understand that we do understand how to do it from the technology point of view. We do know how to implement it. Indeed, and I repeated it, indeed, the question now is about with which countries we can agree and what countries are ready to work in these directions and work with these settlements. So we actually are moving in parallel. On the one hand, the regulators are working on the integration of CBDC. On the other hand, the market players, where they have some agreements, they also develop some parallel models. I believe that we should continue this parallel work without interfering, but with supporting each other. The faster we return this normal functionality of the international settlements for citizens, for business, the better. Dear colleagues, this is the last question for the participants of this panel. We are finalizing our discussion, and I would like to ask the following. You know, now it's difficult to plan like 3 or 5 years ahead. Like 5 years ago at Phenopolis, we were saying, yeah, you know, like in 5 years we will see this. Now our planning horizon is 1 year. I think it's correct because we can just focus on what we've set for ourselves as the goals and tasks. So, talking about 2024, dear colleagues, what do you think? We, as the financial market, I mean here the regulator, the marketplace, what shall we do in the field of digital ruble and tokenization? Dmitry, let's start with you. We need to develop the platform, we need to add client services. First and foremost, B2B, because there is a huge demand from B2B sector. Today, we already touched upon the topic of smart contracts. Last year, I was talking about the repository topic. I guess that next year we'll have to choose the model and the format of how we can manage and distribute these smart contracts. That's a large task for us. Vadim, please. Right, so I will repeat what has already been said. We shall have a standard dynamic QR code and the repository for the simple smart contracts. Right, thank you, Sergey. Well, in fact, if we analyze our discussion today, we covered diverse topics, but still we focused on 3 main areas. First, client experience that should be developed and that should become the first class. It is also coupled with 2 other areas. As to the international settlements, I haven't mentioned it, but here we depend on the speed of other regulators in other countries, and I guess Russia can be a model country where we can just show that if there are some risks connected to money laundering, some technological problems or anything else, if we go across all these stages fast, then we can show to others. We can't be too slow here, we need to move faster. Now there is an increased interest. So we just launched, right? And some of our clients ask us, yes, so what is this digital ruble? And so I said that we're now selling a digital ruble for 1 digital ruble for 10 classic rubles. And the client said, yeah, okay, I can buy it. And so another example is, like, for example, we want to buy the real estate with digital ruble. My main idea is that now we can see the hype around the digital ruble. If we are too slow, if we are too careful in multiple areas, then the legal entities and individuals can lose this interest. Now we should take advantage of the interest that is coming. That's how we can support the development of international settlements as well. And so the second thing here is, as to the development of internal financial markets, we are currently almost cut from the international market. The latest events has shown to us how much we are dependent here. We need to develop our own financial assets. The tokenization shouldn't be over-regulated. This should be a free market as much as possible, so that we could have the mortgage securitization, the loan securitization. We should have some non-standard finance instruments, so that we could develop the cutting-edge technologies and we could serve as a model of how a market can develop on the international scale. Thank you.
Yury.
Yury. Right, thank you. Well, in comparison to our colleagues on the right, those who are already using the digital ruble, we don't have access to it yet. Yes, you know, actually we placed you like this. It was a purposeful organization of our seats today. Okay, thank you. So we need to say something, right? Like what we can do. I guess that platforms can do a lot from the digital ruble point of view. It's about the classic business that we have. There are different opportunities. We can have the accelerated movement ahead. Maybe we can also support the classic market with digital rubles when the client will transfer the assets to us, and then we can transfer directly to the broker. We can use our clearing engine, and that's how we can trade fast and can notify all the participants of a transaction. So this is the first opportunity of the digital ruble. And our strategy is bigger than the just exchange. We have financial services. Last year we had about 1 million clients that used our services. This year we'll have much bigger number. What's important to note is that in this case the digital ruble can be used for insurance. So we will just offer some choice. It can also be said about some loans, deposits, etc. So when we give the choice whether a client want to work with digital ruble or with the classic currency, it will accelerate our movement ahead. Thank you, Sergey. Well, you know, I want just to remember this proverb that sometimes we get ready for a very long time, but then we move fast. So I think that applies to our situation with digital ruble. So we were preparing to the launch for a very long time, but now we are moving quite fast. So we need to also grant the access for fintech companies into this area. Second, we also need to access the international markets. Technology is there. We've already got the experience. We got the lessons learned. And third thing is that some small amendments to the law on the unified taxation will be of, in my opinion, of great help. Because like now our timeline is 1 year, and I guess that this will help us to take a huge leap ahead. Right, I would also like to add that digital ruble and the digital financial assets, they are coupled, they are in a synergy. We as platforms would also like to have the opportunity to open wallets for digital customers. I do understand that it's different regulation, there are a lot of details, but we do know the federal law on this, and I'm sure that we will manage. Thank you. So, colleagues, I wanted to note that it's quite rare that we have such discussions when we have unity on our panel, regardless of the place where our participants of the panel are seated. We, as the regulator, as the central bank, we believe that we should move ahead as fast as we were doing it before. Over 2 years, we actually started from the concept, and now we have a working pilot. But we shouldn't rest assured. We should move forward. I guess that next year we should not only launch the new operations, but we should also have more players, more individuals, more legal entities that will be using these opportunities. And we also have to elaborate on the criteria for the operators, for the intermediaries, including the operators of the information systems, the exchange that could act as the intermediaries. This will definitely be a competition for the banks, but colleagues said that while it's not that bad, they are ready, as they said, for the competition, and it will grant the client and the business an opportunity to work via other participants. Secondly, I support the expansion of the regulation in the field of digital financial assets. We are working with this now with our colleagues. I guess that this market should continue developing. Even though I didn't really hear about the advantages for the customer, but I guess that the next Finopolis will be able to answer this. Third thing is the international settlements. I guess that over the period of 1 year, they will gain more energy, and we won't only have ideas and prototypes, but we'll have some specific solutions with some countries, and we'll get the understanding how it will work and how we can benefit from that. With this, we finalize our discussion today. Thank you very much for your attention, and looking forward to seeing you over our next panel discussions. Thank you.